Coming up next on Government and You is how counties are formed, what counties do for their residents, and how they function. So stay tuned.
The League of Women Voters of Cupertino Sunnyvale, in cooperation with the City of Cupertino, presents Government and You, a series of monthly programs about city and county government.
Hello, I'm Pat Jackson, and on today's program of Government and You, we're going to be talking about county government. With us today is Roberta Hollimon, who is our guest and the chair of the Leagues of Women Voters of Santa Clara County. Later, we'll be meeting Dianne McKenna, who is the chair of the County Board of Supervisors. Welcome, Roberta.
Thank you, Pat.
Glad that you could be here today, and we get a chance to talk about counties and learn a bit about them. First of all, I'd like to ask you, would you tell us a little about the history of the counties in California and their development?
Yes, we've had counties since the very beginning of California's statehood. In the early decades, the state government performed relatively few functions, so the counties were given the responsibility of carrying out all the services that the state felt were necessary for its citizens. The counties built the roads, maintained the jails, cared for the poor, kept records on property and statistics on people. And even though the counties were regulated by the state when they were acting as the state agent, they still were very autonomous. They were local units governed by a locally elected Board of Supervisors who are responsible to the local citizens.
So it was something where, while they needed those services, still each county pretty much performed them by themselves, in a sense.
That's true.
Is what happened. Have you always had the same number of counties in California?
No, we started out with 27 counties, and now we have 58 counties. And they have increased mainly by splits. The one large county would become two counties. The last time there was an attempt at a split was in 1982 when Fresno County and El Dorado County each wanted to split in two, but elections did not pass. And the last time we had a change in county boundaries was in 1907 when Imperial County split off from San Diego County.
Well, that is a long time span in between,
Yes,
so
it is.
It's obviously something that doesn't happen too often.
Not too often.
And a thorough democratic process in the fact that this never occurs unless the people themselves give consent. Is that correct?
That's true. Mm-hmm. It requires a vote of the electorate being affected by the change to approve a change in county boundaries, and also approval by the governing board of whichever county is being changed.
So it needs the approval of both.
That's true.
Both the residents and the governing board. Well, people can rest easy that nothing will happen to their county without their knowledge.
That's right.
Certainly. What is required to change a county's boundaries? What must happen and what must be done?
There must be an election in the area being affected. So if it's one county that wants to split, then everyone in that county must approve by a majority vote the split. If it's a consolidation of two counties, then the residents of both counties must approve the consolidation, not just a majority in the largest county. So that protects small counties from being absorbed by larger counties.
Yes, and they can rest easy in that respect.
Yes.
Is there much variation in the size of population of counties? I really wanted to ask that because I hear there is quite a difference or quite a wide variation.
Yes, there is, both in the geographic size and in the population. In terms of size, the smallest, except for San Francisco, which is a special case, the two smallest counties are Santa Cruz and San Mateo. Each of them are less than 450 square miles, whereas the largest county, San Bernardino, is 20,000 square miles. It's 46 times the size of Santa Cruz County. And in terms of population, Los Angeles is the largest with over 7 million people. And the smallest is Alpine County. There are 1,200 people living in Alpine County.
Well, that certainly I can see where that would qualify as being the smallest. And San Bernardino, just the geographical area, is tremendous,
Just
isn't it?
enormous.
For governing and so forth. How is a county usually structured politically? How does it all come about? How are things done?
The county has an elected Board of Supervisors. They're nonpartisan offices, and they can organize themselves in a variety of ways depending on what kind of county they are. There are three different kinds of counties. There are general law counties, charter counties, and city counties. And depending on which county you are, that determines how you organize your elected body and your appointed officers.
I see. So having the three different types of counties brings back what you had said something earlier about San Francisco being a unique county.
Yes.
And unique because it's both a city and a county then.
Mm-hmm. San Francisco started out as a city within a county, but in only 6 short years, it expanded to the water on 3 sides and San Mateo County line on the south, and so it became a consolidated city-county. It's the only one in California that falls in that category. And they have 11 supervisors on their board, whereas all other counties have 5 supervisors.
I see. So there was really no place else for San Francisco County to go.
That's right.
So it became a city and a county.
Yes.
As different from Los Angeles, which has both the city, but it is not a city and a county.
No, because there are other cities within Los Angeles County and other governmental or unincorporated areas also. There have been many attempts to try to make Los Angeles a city-county, but they have all failed.
I see. The citizens have decided no.
That's
Is that
right.
correct?
They had one of those elections, and they said no.
What are the differences between the general law and charter counties that you just got through mentioning?
Yes, originally all counties were general law counties. And then in 1911, during the reform of Hiram Johnson, during his administration, counties were allowed to write their own charters. At this time, there was a great flurry of activity for home rule, so to speak. And then just as quickly as it started, it stopped. The First World War came along, and evidently people became less interested in trying to make charter counties. And as a result, we have only 12 counties that have their own charters. Out of the 58, only 12.
Only 12. That really is a very small number, don't you think?
Yes, I think so. Particularly since everyone thought this was the thing to do.
Yes. And so the differences there between the general law and the charter writes they write their own laws.
That's right. Whereas a general law county must be organized in the way that the state statute says they must organize, which means that they must elect their Board of Supervisors by district. Charter counties are allowed to decide whether they will elect by district or at large. General law counties also must elect all their officers, and they are told which officers they may have. They have a little leeway in being able to combine some offices, but they must have somewhere between 13 and 20 officers, all of whom must be elected. And charter counties may appoint their officers and decide who those officers will be.
I see. So essentially the general law counties have few options when it comes to their government
Exactly.
and type of government, whereas the charter can make their own rules in
That's
a sense.
right. That's right. Mm-hmm.
So that makes quite a bit of difference, even though it hasn't happened
Very-
frequently
right.
in the state. You had talked earlier about San Francisco and the fact that it is city and county both, and that there are no others in the state of California. Are there any advantages to San Francisco in being both a city and a county, do you think?
I think you can probably cut down on duplication of services. Since you're serving the same area and the same people, there's no need to have a county service and a city service. I don't know whether they find that having more supervisors is better or worse.
And certainly San Francisco changed, and they now have supervisors by district.
That's
isn't
right,
large.
and that usually comes up for a vote every 5 years or so. It seems that they want to go back and forth between being elected at large or by district.
Yes, because I can see where citizens might see at one time that it was advantageous but grow disillusioned later on. Which type of county is Santa Clara, our own very county here?
Santa Clara is a charter county.
And so at this point, one of those unusual ones in the state, or one of the few, they decided to become the charter county and have more say about what happens to them at that point. Are there any other differences in general law and charter counties that you might think of?
I mentioned that charter counties can appoint all their officers, and it's interesting what officers we have in Santa Clara County who are appointed and which ones are elected. All counties must elect the sheriff. They have no choice on that. So we do have an elected sheriff, we have an elected district attorney, and an elected county assessor. And the Board of Supervisors appoints the county executive, and the county executive appoints all the other officers and is responsible for their performance.
I see. So the county sheriff and the district attorney can essentially remain easy. They know their jobs are going to be there.
Yeah, they have to get elected every 4 years.
That's true.
But at least they can go back to the people and do not respond to the county executive.
The office itself will exist,
Yes, right.
whether they are there or not. What do you see as the role of the Board of Supervisors in Santa Clara County?
The The board is the policy-making body, and they sit both as an executive and legislative body.
What is the differences when you say an executive and then a legislative body?
The legislative body passes laws and decides what the what the rules are going to be, and an executive carries out program.
Mm-hmm.
So once the board has decided what the program will be, then they are also responsible for seeing that it is carried out through their county executive.
Mm-hmm. So when you say policy making, that means rule making in a sense.
Yes.
Ordinances are laws for cities, just as we have laws for the state. In terms of, you mentioned some of the role of the Board of Supervisors. What are some of the county's functions? What does the county do for its residents?
Well, the county acts as a very important administrative agent for the state and for many state and federal programs and services. Programs such as Aid to Family with Dependent Children, Medi-Cal, food stamp program. The county also places foster children. It licenses care facilities. And then there are some other options that the county can carry out, can decide on its own what it wants to do. But counties are also required to have a general relief program for those needy people who do not fall under other welfare programs. The county must give relief to those people.
So that, in a sense, the county has no choice, that it is required that they take care of the residents within their county boundaries if they can't care for themselves. Are these services that you just mentioned provided to all county residents? Or are those, for instance, within an incorporated city, do they still get those services?
Well, the services theoretically are there for all county residents. However, there are some municipal services that are also provided by cities, so the county provides those only to residents of unincorporated areas. Some of them get to be a little confusing, though, such as law enforcement. The county has to provide law enforcement. Well, the cities also have police departments, so the county provides law enforcement through the sheriff's department to unincorporated areas. But then there are some cities who contract with the sheriff to get law enforcement, so sometimes you will see sheriffs in cities and providing law enforcement in the cities because they have been contracted for that.
So that the cities and counties attempt not to have a duplication of services.
Right.
But just as a matter of course, sometimes it's a little difficult to decide which is which in terms of county and city employees. Can a county resident inquire about these services?
Yes. One way is to look in the front of the white pages of the phone book. In county government, all the departments are listed there with their phone numbers. If the resident doesn't know exactly which department they need to call, they could call their own supervisor, and that number is 299-2323. If they don't know which supervisor they should be calling, they could call the county executive's office, and that number is 299-2424. Both of those numbers are listed in those white pages also.
Well, that certainly is a help to the viewers who may be watching, knowing what they can do to find out about services. And we thank you very much for this historical information that you've given us, as well as present-day information. Now we're going to the question and answer segment of our program. If something is happening on a highway, you see something dumped on the highway or something in the middle of the road, who do you call? Is this a jurisdiction of your city, of your county, of your state? We'll find out in just a moment.
Dear Government and You, boy am I mad. While driving down the freeway today, I spotted not one, but 2 piles of garbage dumped on the side of the road. I'd like to know who I can report this to. The city? The county? The sanitation department? Who? People shouldn't use freeways as junkyards too, you know.
Dear viewer, yes, I do know that garbage has no place on our roads. It looks bad, endangers the environment, and could even be a traffic hazard. For any problems regarding freeways anywhere in the state, contact the State of California Department of Transportation, better known as Caltrans. Cities and counties maintain streets, roads, and expressways only. Thanks for your question. If you have a question for Government and You, write to us, the League of Women Voters of Cupertino Sunnyvale, care of the City of Cupertino, Post Office Box 580, Cupertino, California, 95015.
Recently, I went to the county building and interviewed the chair of the County Board of Supervisors, Dianne McKenna. In the short 2 years that Dianne McKenna has been a supervisor, she has become chair of the board, and in an amusing aside, told me that when she was elected, she was actually 5 feet 9 inches tall, but now is just a little over 5 feet. While we didn't actually believe her, we admired, and it was a tribute to her sense of humor on a job that is difficult, but she handles it with great ease. With us today is Dianne McKenna of the County Board of Supervisors. Welcome. Dianne, for my first question, could you tell me about your duties on the Board of Supervisors and how long you've been there?
Sure, Pat. I've been on the board a little over 2 years now. And as a member of the Board of Supervisors, we basically sit as a policy body making decisions for all the issues that involve county government. They would include such things as health issues, criminal justice issues, social service issues. And then in addition to that, I represent parts of 9 cities in the northwestern part of the county, so that I also try and keep in contact with all of those cities and all of those jurisdictions to understand what their needs are as well at the level of county government.
Well, that is certainly a wide range of responsibilities there. How often does the board meet, and where do they meet, in case citizens might be interested in attending some of the sessions?
Well, we're always anxious to have citizens come to our meetings, and we usually meet most Tuesdays. And we begin as the Transit Board from 9 to 10 o'clock in the morning, and then from 10 o'clock on, we meet as the Board of Supervisors. The only exception would be if we had a particular holiday or something that we wouldn't meet on a Tuesday. But if anyone's interested in coming down and just wants to make sure that we're meeting that Tuesday, then they're free to call our offices and find out if indeed we're meeting that Tuesday.
What are a few of the other governmental bodies that you serve on as part of your job on the Board of Supervisors?
Well, I represent this board and a couple of regional bodies. I'm the immediate past president of the Association of Bay Area Governments, and that's really the regional planning body that's made up of all the cities and the counties in the Bay Area. I also represent the county on the Bay Conservation and Development Commission, and that body is responsible for protecting the bay and ensuring public access to the bay. I also serve on the Route 85 Task Force, which has a great impact on the district that I represent. And I also now chair the Preservation 2020, which is looking at protecting open space in the county.
I'm glad you mentioned Preservation 2020. Why was it formed, and what is the composition of that force?
Well, when I was elected to the Board of Supervisors, there was a proposal that was then being considered of increasing the density in the hillside by a factor of 2 to 3. And I've always have been a supporter of environmental protection and open space. And so when I got onto the board, I was able to convince my fellow supervisors that perhaps we should take a look at protecting open space from a broad-based constituency. And so they were supportive of the proposal and willingly established the task force. And then the task force is made up of individuals from around the county representing various viewpoints, so that by the time we get done with our work, I'm hoping that we'll probably get consensus from people who represent the environment, people who represent homeowners that live in the hillsides, people who represent the Building Industry Association, and people who represent just a broad base of interest have come together on this.
One of the areas that I know has been of great concern to you is the children's shelter here in Santa Clara County. Could you tell me about the children's shelter? And I understand there's a need for a new children's shelter.
That's right, Pat. The children's shelter that is currently being used was built in 1952. So it's quite old, and it was built with the needs of the 1950s and certainly doesn't meet the needs of the 1980s. And the shelter serves abused and neglected and exploited children. And in this county, we have roughly about 4,000 calls that come for this type of use. And the children will come to the shelter, and if they're younger children, we try and have them placed in foster homes as quickly as possible. But there is a length of stay that children will have at the shelter, and we're trying to have that environment as close to a home-like environment as possible. So we're looking to build a new shelter that would be based upon cottages on the site that gives a home-like environment, which would have separate bedrooms or one or two sharing a bedroom, and would just give a sense of security to them to be able to turn their life around at a very critical time in their early development. So we're looking also to have perhaps a small type of building to carry out the educational facilities. So we're looking for a complex, but it would be on the scale, a much smaller scale than you tend to think of large institutions, so that when children come there, they have a complete setting of home and school and medical environment.
Well, it sounds like a great plan, because certainly those children are at a time of crisis.
That's right.
And for them to have the best of care in a home-like environment is extremely important. What do you see as one of the most pressing problems for county government today?
Throughout this year, we're going to be looking at ways of trying to deal with a $10 million deficit, and how best to meet that need of having a balanced budget, because at local government level, your budgets must always be balanced, and at the same time meet those ever-increasing needs. And again, one of the problems that the board has had to deal with is the increasing needs and the demands for those resources from the criminal justice system, with the high cost of providing jail facilities and services to the inmates. That part of our budget has been growing so rapidly that it seems to eat up all of the increasing revenues that we get in the way of taxes. And so this board has been working very hard to try and meet those needs, but also be responsive to the needs of issues like the children's shelter, and like increasing needs in the mental health community, and the ever-growing needs of the people who now find themselves homeless in this county. So the most difficult problem is trying to balance all of the needs that we have with the amount of resources that we have.
As an agent of the state of California, do you feel that you've been able to carry out the legislature's demands?
Well, I think we've tried our best to carry out the demands, but I think if you talk to anybody at the local level, you'd find that we tend to get demands placed upon us to respond to without an equal amount of resources to meet those demands. We have a wonderful hospital here that's a county hospital, one that's really well respected throughout the Bay Area and actually throughout the state. And yet, when we must respond to the health needs of people, whether or not they're insured, but we don't see that money coming from the state to meet the uninsured patients, it just puts a greater demand on our own local resources.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And Valley Medical Center certainly does have a good reputation.
Yes.
Its burn unit and its spinal cord unit, I understand, are really outstanding. What are the growth projections for the year 2000? Will the county be able to meet and handle the increase?
Well, the projections that we have from the Association of Bay Area Governments, that takes a look at the whole Bay Area and then gives you, based upon individual cities' projections and other economic projections, have indicated that we now have a population of about 104 million people, 1.4 million people. In the year 2000, we expect that'll be 1.5 million people. And currently we have about, I think, roughly about 850,000 jobs in Santa Clara County. And by the year 2000, we'll be looking at about 1.1 million jobs. So even though the rate of growth may have slowed a little, we're still expecting Santa Clara County to both grow in number of jobs and a number of people living here. And of course, the dilemma that we have, which everyone who will be watching this program is familiar with, is the growing need for housing in Santa Clara County, the demands that's going to place on our transportation system, and then the growth and its impact on the natural environment in Santa Clara County. So we're always working on trying to deal with those three problems in the most efficient and effective manner possible.
What has given you the most satisfaction? Since you've been on the board for 2 years now, what has given you the most satisfaction? What are some of the challenges of your job too?
If you talk to any elected official, the overall kind of sense of satisfaction that you get from just working with constituents and being able to solve their problems gives you a sense of satisfaction and kind of a sense of accomplishment every time that you get a letter of thanks or acknowledgement of something you've been able to help them on. And then I think there are long-term satisfactions that come from specific projects or goals that you've had when you've been in elected office, to see those accomplished. And then I think that you just have satisfaction in having a hand in the overall kind of operation of the county and working on the issues that are critical to everyone, having the sense of having power in those or accomplishment in those, like the traffic or transportation problems, the housing problems, the criminal justice problems, all of those, just having a day-to-day hand in seeing those things accomplished are the types of things that are most rewarding with this job.
Well, I would say if the hat fits, wear it, and it certainly does. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Today we learned how counties function, what they do for their residents, and some of the history and background of counties. This has been well outlined by Roberta Hollimon, Chair of the Leagues of Women Voters of Santa Clara County, and Dianne McKenna, who is Chair of the Board of Supervisors. If you have any questions or comments about our program, please write to Box 580, Cupertino, California, 95015, in care of the League of Women Voters of Cupertino, Sunnyvale. I'm Pat Jackson, and thank you for tuning in to Government and You.